For over a century, the relationship between the United States and Canada has stood as a global model, built on a foundation of shared values, intertwined histories, and mutual respect. From the earliest days of their modern nations, these two neighbors have forged a partnership that is both unique and enduring, shaped by geography and a common vision for the future. Stretching nearly 9,000 kilometers, the US-Canada border is the world's longest undefended boundary. It's more than just a line on a map, it's a living symbol of trust and cooperation, visible from space as a gentle seam between two vast countries. Every year, millions of people cross this border for work, to visit family, or simply to explore. For many, the journey is routine, a reflection of a bond that feels more like family than mere neighbors. Border towns thrive on this connection, blending cultures and traditions in ways that are uniquely North American. Our economies are deeply intertwined, with billions of dollars in goods and services flowing back and forth each day. From auto parts to agricultural products, energy to technology, each country is vital to the other's prosperity. This economic partnership supports millions of jobs and fuels innovation on both sides of the border, but the connection goes far beyond trade. We share languages. English and French echo across both nations. Our legal systems, rooted in common principles, foster cooperation and understanding. In classrooms, students learn about each other's history, building bridges for the next generation. We celebrate together through sports and entertainment, from the roar of the crowd at a hockey game to the shared rhythms of music festivals. These moments of joy and rivalry bring us closer, creating memories that span the border. This deep connection fosters a rare level of trust between nations. Diplomats and leaders meet not just as colleagues but as partners with a shared stake in each other's success. When disaster strikes, whether it's wildfires, floods, or other emergencies, help comes reflexively from across the border. Emergency teams work side by side, demonstrating the strength of our enduring partnership and the instinct to support one another in times of need. Our security alliances like NORAD are a testament to our commitment to defending the continent together. For decades, our militaries have trained and operated as one, ready to respond to any threat that may arise. This relationship has long been seen as a constant, a quiet, steady understanding that, whatever the future holds, we will face it as steadfast allies. The border is not a barrier but a meeting place where cooperation and friendship flourish. Yet, even the strongest bonds can be tested. Disagreements and challenges inevitably arise, sometimes straining the trust that has been built over generations. The question is, what happens when that trust is put on the line? In moments of uncertainty, will the US and Canada continue to stand together, or will divisions threaten the partnership that has defined them for so long? Donald Trump's presidency marked a dramatic turning point in the world of international relations, shaking up the established order in ways few could have predicted. His arrival on the global stage brought a disruptive, unpredictable energy that reverberated through diplomatic circles everywhere. The close relationship between the United States and Canada, long considered one of the world's most stable partnerships, was suddenly thrown into uncertainty. Centuries of shared history, open borders, and economic cooperation were put to the test. Trump's America First philosophy didn't just challenge old alliances, it upended them. Trade agreements that had been the backbone of North American prosperity, like NAFTA, were now seen as obstacles rather than achievements. For Canada, this meant navigating a new landscape where the rules seemed to change overnight. The president's confrontational style, marked by public criticism, unpredictable tweets, and blunt rhetoric, was a jarring shift for Canada, a country known for its preference for quiet, behind-the-scenes diplomacy. Suddenly, every statement and tweet could spark a new crisis. NAFTA, once hailed as a symbol of North American cooperation, became a lightning rod for criticism. Trump repeatedly called it the worst trade deal ever signed, threatening to tear it up and start from scratch. This rhetoric sent shockwaves through Canadian industries that depended on cross-border trade. Canadian leaders suddenly found themselves facing a partner who viewed them less as trusted allies and more as economic rivals. The old sense of mutual trust was replaced by suspicion and tough bargaining. The traditional playbook of backroom diplomacy and quiet negotiations was no longer enough. Canadian officials realized they needed new strategies to protect their interests. In response, Canada launched a multi-front campaign, reaching out not just to the White House but to Congress, state governors, and influential business leaders across the United States. The goal was clear: defend the partnership and remind Americans of the deep ties that bound the two nations. The stakes could not have been higher. A century of friendship, economic integration, and peaceful coexistence was suddenly at risk, threatened by a new era of uncertainty and confrontation. For Canada, the challenge was clear: adapt quickly, innovate diplomatically, and fight for its place at the table, or risk losing everything it had built with its closest neighbor. NAFTA's renegotiation became the central battleground in this new, tense era. The US demanded major concessions, including a sunset clause and greater access to Canada's markets. Demands Canada saw as unacceptable. Negotiations were contentious, with the US using threats, tariffs, and public pressure to force Canada's hand. At one point, the US struck a deal with Mexico, isolating Canada and raising the stakes. But Canada, led by Chrystia Freeland, refused to be bullied. They insisted on preserving key protections, especially the independent dispute resolution system. Canada was willing to walk away rather than accept a bad deal. This was a defining moment. Canada drew a line in the sand. The world watched to see who would blink first. In 2018, the dispute escalated as the US imposed steep tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum, citing national security. For Canada, this was a direct blow, both economically and symbolically. The move was widely seen as a pressure tactic, not a real security concern. Trudeau called the justification absurd, reminding Americans of Canada's sacrifices as an ally. The tariffs threatened thousands of Canadian jobs and felt like a betrayal. The friendly rhetoric vanished, replaced by open hostility. Trump's personal attacks on Trudeau only deepened the rift. Quiet diplomacy was over. Canada had to respond. Canada didn't back down. Instead, it hit back with targeted retaliatory tariffs on US goods. The Canadian government, after careful deliberation, decided that a strong response was necessary to defend its national interests and send a clear signal to its southern neighbor. Officials stood before the press outlining a list of American products that would now face new tariffs as a direct response to US trade actions. This was not a decision made lightly, but one rooted in the need to protect Canadian industries and workers. The countermeasures were strategic, aimed at products from politically sensitive US states. By targeting goods like steel, aluminum, and even everyday items such as orange juice and whiskey, Canada sought to maximize the political impact of its response. The hope was that lawmakers in Washington would feel pressure from their own constituents, farmers, factory workers, and business owners, who suddenly found their livelihoods at risk due to the escalating trade dispute. The goal was clear: create pressure within the US to end the dispute. Canadian officials calculated that by focusing on swing states and key industries, they could encourage American citizens to speak out against the tariffs and push their leaders toward negotiation and compromise. This was a risky move given Canada's economic dependence on the US, but doing nothing was riskier. The two countries share one of the world's largest trading relationships, and any disruption could have serious consequences for both economies. Yet Canadian leaders believed that a firm stance was necessary to avoid setting a precedent of capitulation. The Trudeau government stood firm, defending not just industries, but the principle of fair, rules-based trade. In speeches and debates, officials emphasized that Canada was standing up for the international trading system and the values of cooperation and mutual respect. The counter-tariffs sent a clear message: Canada would not be intimidated. The government's statements were echoed in headlines across the country, reinforcing the idea that Canada was prepared to defend itself, no matter the size of its opponent. The move was widely supported at home, seen as a stand for sovereignty. Across the nation, Canadians rallied behind their leaders, expressing pride in their country's willingness to stand up for its rights and values, even in the face of economic uncertainty. Canada proved it could defend its interests, even against its largest partner. The country's industries continued to operate, adapting to the new reality and showing resilience in the face of adversity. The trade war was now public, emotional, and personal. The world took notice, as headlines around the globe highlighted the growing rift between two close allies. For many, this was more than just a dispute over tariffs. It was a test of national resolve and the strength of international partnerships. The trade dispute sparked a rare wave of unity across Canada. Canadians of all backgrounds rallied behind their government, seeing the conflict as a national, not partisan issue. A Buy Canadian movement swept the country, with citizens supporting local businesses and shunning targeted US products. Social media buzzed with patriotic messages and lists of Canadian alternatives. The public support gave Trudeau a strong mandate to hold firm in negotiations. Media coverage framed the dispute as a defining moment for Canadian identity. The narrative, a plucky underdog standing up to a powerful bully. Instead of dividing Canadians, the pressure campaign united them. The country rediscovered a shared sense of purpose and resolve. Canada's unity became its greatest strength. In the US, reactions were far more divided. Trump's base cheered his tough stance, seeing it as a defense of American workers. But business groups, farmers, and many politicians warned the tariffs would hurt the US economy and damage a vital alliance. Some Republicans urged de-escalation, fearing long-term harm to US-Canada ties. Democrats criticized Trump for alienating a key ally and risking American jobs. For many Americans, the conflict with Canada was confusing and unsettling. Canada had always been seen as a friendly neighbor, not a rival. The dispute exposed deep divisions in how Americans viewed their role in the world. The cost of confrontation was becoming clear on both sides of the border. After a year of threats and tariffs, a new deal was reached, the USMCA. All sides made concessions. Trump claimed victory, while Canada preserved its key protections. The independent dispute settlement system survived, and the sunset clause was replaced with a more stable review process. Canada made painful concessions in dairy but avoided the worst outcomes. The steel and aluminum tariffs lingered for months, prolonging the pain. When the tariffs were finally lifted, both countries could begin to heal. The USMCA was more evolution than revolution, but the process left scars. Trust had been damaged, and the relationship would never be quite the same. The memory of the fight would linger long after the ink dried. The trade war taught both countries hard lessons. Canada learned it must defend its interests and diversify its trade partners. Unity and strategic responses proved powerful tools. The US saw the real costs of alienating allies, even the closest ones. Alliances are about more than military strength, they're built on trust and shared prosperity. The partnership will endure, but with more caution and vigilance. Both sides must work to rebuild trust and remember the value of cooperation. The episode proved the bond is strong but not unbreakable. The future depends on constant effort, mutual respect, and the understanding that we are stronger together.